Hi, welcome to High on Utah. This is Heather Groom, and today I've got a special guest named Brittney Bills, and we've been friends for a number of years,
A
I
long
think.
time.
Yes, yes. I was even trying to figure out how we know each
I
other.
don't know. I think the political circle in Utah just gets with the women.
Yes, that's true. We all kind of know each
Yeah,
other.
we all connect somehow.
Somehow we find each other, whether
Yeah,
it's in Costco
exactly.
or
Right.
somewhere. But Brittany has served a few years, and we'll have her introduce herself a little bit. She's been on the Highland City Council, and right now she's running unopposed for mayor, which is going to be great. So it's
Yes.
99.9% sure that she's going to be the next mayor, and I'm so excited about it.
That is a brave statistic. We'll
I'm just going
see.
to throw it out there. It's a
I
Heather
appreciate
statistic.
it. Put it out there, and then it will happen.
Yes. Well, so I was going to have you just introduce yourself and kind of talk about like where you grew up, where you're from, and then what got you into public service.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in North Ogden, and then I went to BYU for college. I majored in political science with a master's degree in public policy analysis. So government has always been like my kind of nerdy thing that I need to do.
Yep.
So I worked for a couple of government agencies when I first graduated, and then we moved to Portland, Oregon. We were there for like 10 years, and I did mostly like nonprofit volunteer stuff there. And then when we came back to Utah, I was ready to jump back in. So I taught for a while at like in the public schools. I taught at UVU. I'm teaching at Salt Lake Community now, but I've always been pretty involved in government. So I work full time in software right now, government software, and then I teach on the side, and then I do city council on on the
On
side
the
of that.
it fills
Right,
in.
on the side
Yes.
of that somehow. But I like to be busy, so it's good.
Yeah, and what did you say you teach at Salt Lake Community?
I teach the Intro to American Government.
Oh,
So
I love that.
it's
Okay.
fun. So we really I think government and history is the most interesting when you can talk
Yep.
about how it's applicable today.
Yes.
And so we really follow current events, like why does the Fourth Amendment matter today? What's going on with the First Amendment? Like it's crazy that you've had this Constitution
Yep.
for so long and we're still figuring out what it's about.
Yes.
So I love it. It's a good group of
I
students.
love that.
It's
I
fun.
was an adjunct
Oh,
also
were you?
at SUU for a few years. I got my master's actually,
Okay.
and my
I
MPA,
remember
my
that.
master's in public
Yeah.
administration. And then, anyway, and I loved it. I loved being an adjunct. I'm like, I might just have to do it again. It
It's
was fun.
fun to be in the classroom and it's
Yep.
fun to hear different points. And it's fun. What's really fun is teaching people how to have polite conversations about government. That's what I like the best. Like
Yes.
how we can argue, how we can debate in a reasonable way.
I feel like we need a whole other podcast on
Oh
just
my
that
gosh.
topic. So thanks for
It
the
is the
idea.
biggest thing.
Because I think people have gotten into just if you don't agree with me, you're evil, And we were earlier off record. We were chatting about different things, and when I served on the state school board, I would have crazy things. I even had death threats a few times, and just some nutty things. And it was crazy because I thought, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't agree, like present the opinion, or I'm open to talking about it. But it was
Yeah, and
crazy.
I try really hard to have grace for everybody because I think especially in municipal government, like it affects your house, your family, your neighborhood,
Absolutely,
your kids. So I think it's fair for people to get passionate about it.
absolutely.
But I think mean is
But mean goes another level.
different.
But yeah, so we'll have to chat about this another
Yeah,
day.
sure thing.
But definitely, there's people are passionate about what day their garbage gets taken out and some other things,
Yes.
And
That is a
so
big deal.
it is. It really is. So let's talk about Highland because
Let's
you've been serving there for a while, and I like the idea of Mayor Bills. I think that sounds amazing. So, kind of brought you into city council? And I know we've worked on a few projects
Yeah.
together over the years in Highland. What are some of the things that you are super proud of that you've accomplished on the city council? And then we're going to talk about things kind of looking ahead.
So I think the thing I am most proud of is that I jumped in to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a scary thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and I've always loved government and I really have a passion for local government. I think it's what affects our life the most. Like I said, our family, our kids, our property values. So I really am passionate about local government. But then when I started going to city council meetings, and at the time, every member of the city council and the mayor were men that
Mm-hmm.
were a very similar demographic. And I just thought, we need a different perspective, not because I have a problem with
Yes,
having a full
agreed.
council of men and mayor, but just I think moms and women think about things in a different way. And I felt like that was missing in a way.
Yep, I remember, and that's actually I
That,
remember we did connect on
yeah,
that
we
actually.
went to lunch.
We went to that's
Yeah.
right. I think
And
we
I was
did.
like, I just think we need a female perspective.
And I said I love it because just like you said, I mean, great men in there, but definitely I think it's great to have other perspectives,
Yeah,
as
it's
well.
been really good. So that's what I'm most proud of, is that I jumped in to do it when it was like really scary.
And even just talking about that for a second, I think that's I've had that similar type situation where I always say to people, especially women, like we always kind of think of all the cons before we think of
Right?
the pros.
100%.
And so we always are like, I'm not qualified. I don't know what kind of experience I have. I don't know how this is going to affect my family or my kids. And it's like we go through this cycle. And I
Mhm.
remember when I started working for Governor Herbert, like I was so ready to say no. They came to me and actually offered me the job and actually took me to lunch. And I remember I came back and talked to Brent and was like, I mean, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. And it was like I had all the no's
Yeah, we
laid
do.
out. And I think as women, we sometimes we're like, I don't know if I can do this. And then Brent was like, but do you want to? And I think you would do a great job. And it kind of changed for me. And I went, okay, maybe I will do this.
Yeah, why do we come from a default of no? Because I think we totally do. And everybody will say to me, like, yeah, but you're really qualified because you
That's
have
what
a
people say.
master's degree.
Yes.
And I'm like, you don't need that to be involved.
No,
You don't need that in
agreed.
local politics. Like, you just need to care about garbage day, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just need to care about it.
Well, in
And
community, just
yeah,
even like, and I think people say, well, I don't know if I'm qualified. That's like the first thing I
yeah,
hear from a
100%.
lot of women. They'll say, I don't know if I'm qualified. And the scariest part, I tell people the scariest part was actually saying yes.
Hmm.
That was the
Yeah.
very scariest, worst part was like actually deciding to do something,
Yeah. And it turns out we're more qualified than we think we are, and we're actually can be really good at it,
And we give such a great perspective, like being moms or if you're not a mom, it's just different perspectives. So that's why I
Yeah.
always tell people, I'm like, you know what? Throw your hat in.
Do
Like,
it.
go for it. So, okay, I love that. Well, I love that you said yes, and I love the things you've been working on. And it's going to be a bright future ahead for Highland. So, at least that's how I feel.
No, I think it will be. I think we're going to have some challenges and some things we're going to have to work on, but I think it is going to be good.
What are some of the challenges right now?
I would say one of the biggest challenges is taking direction from the state legislature.
Oh, yes, I know about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like the state legislature has more and more rules about water, right? That's why we have metering in the city now.
Mhm.
Everybody gets mad about their meters. I'm like, oh, it's not me.
Right.
Like, that's a state mandate, right? Affordable housing is a state mandate.
Mhm.
So I think it's a lot about understanding what legislation is and then being able to apply it to your city. Because Lehigh is not Highland, is not Pleasant Grove, right? Not Orem. We're all really different. And so I think figuring out what like intent of legislation is, and then how do we make this work for Highland? What does affordable housing look like here? What are we going to do about our water here?
Mhm.
So I think that's the challenge. One of them is taking that and figuring out what to do with it. Budget Highland is going to be debt free in 2027.
Wow.
Completely debt free.
Wow, that's
Is that
really
amazing?
great.
I know,
Especially because
it's
we have
amazing.
the newer building. Not that it's new, but it's
Paid off in
paid
2020. The new
Wow.
park was totally fun. Like,
Wow.
we paid cash for it. So, the new park over
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
So we're really conservative that way. I think that once we're debt free, it's going to be easier to say, let's spend more money and, right, take
Right.
out another bond or whatever. So I think it's going to be really important to look really carefully at how we're spending money and kind of how we do things once that debt is paid off
Mhm.
and make smart choices.
Well, and we're in a really good spot. What people don't realize, even just in our cities and in our state, is that we are, for the most part, very fiscally responsible.
Mhm.
And we take that responsibility pretty seriously. And that's why a lot of times we're ranked right now, like US News and World Report is like Utah's number one for place for growth or just for outlook
Yeah.
because they're saying, you know what, you've been able to not go on a spending spree,
Yeah.
so much.
And in Highland, we haven't raised property taxes since 2008.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's hard, I think, to understand. Property taxes get confusing because they go to the county and the school board. So I think people see their property taxes going up and kind of get frustrated and
They like blame the
upset.
city sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not since 2008. Now we've had like fees and things that we've had to do,
Mhm.
but not property taxes. So and debt free. So
That's amazing. Well, and one thing that I think this is just one issue that I think is important. I think I used to be a little bit more libertarian, almost like a little bit more, and I know Highland leans pretty heavily libertarian,
we're getting more
you know.
progressive as we get
But
older, aren't we?
yes, but I think there's a certain element of still not losing its charm or feeling, and it's what makes different cities great.
Yeah.
Because to your point, like when I used to work for the governor and we'd go to these different cities, every city has a little bit of a different feel and a little bit of a different dynamic. And now that I do real estate, I have a lot of people that move here from other states, and one of the comments they'll say, like, where are the community gathering places? Like, where are these spots? And, even down to like Christmas lights. I remember talking to one of my friends also on the city council, and
You're
she was
talking
like,
to Kim.
yes, I
You're
was
talking to Kim about Christmas lights.
and I said, and I agree, it's a cool thing. I still love
Yeah.
just a holiday feel, right?
Yep.
And I think that cities, sometimes we scale back so much that then when I have people that move here from out of state, now that I'm on this real estate side, they're like, well, what's special about Highland? Or what's special about Lehigh? What's
Yeah.
special about Mill Creek or whatever? And so I love kind of those differentiating things. And even, just like the Highland Fling and different
Yeah.
things that we do, I think are really fun. And I think that there's been, I think since COVID, I mean, maybe I'm just blaming COVID, I don't know. But I feel like people, and even myself, like we kind of went in
Yeah,
more.
we did.
And then we cut out a lot of things and we're not adding everything back in like
Yeah,
I
it's
think
true.
we probably should
Yeah.
because we don't have those same, even churches right now and things, they've kind of cut out a lot of activities.
Yeah.
And then we wonder sometimes why, like the youth, they're struggling. And it's like, we've
That's
got to
why.
still have
Yeah.
community things.
So it's good that you said that. We're actually making a huge effort with the Highland Fling this year because it used to be a huge event. And you go to any other city day, it's like a big deal.
Yeah.
So we're putting a big emphasis on this year, spending a little bit more money and putting like a lot more thought into it of how can we make this an event that people plan around, that they look forward to every year, bring back some of the old school traditions. So you're going to see a lot of that coming back this year.
I love that. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
it's gonna
Okay,
be fun.
I have
It's
it
gonna be
like
good.
I'm gonna put it on my calendar
Put it in your
because
calendar.
yeah, but I love that. And I remember like seeing old neighbors and people,
Yeah.
and it's like whenever we do go to those things, it's like, oh, it's so fun and it brings the community back together. But I think it's important
Yeah.
even as adults, like not just
For
the
sure.
kids, because I did mention the kids, and like the teenagers. But I feel like I talk to a lot of women, especially, and they feel a little more isolated,
For sure.
and they're like, I need to do something.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's gonna be good. It's a big focus for us right now.
I love that. Well, I'm excited about it. So let's see, what other projects are we looking forward to?
Oh, what other projects? So I think roads are always a big thing. How are we gonna maintain our roads? That's like a constant question. Public safety is a big one. We share public safety with Alpine, and it's how are we going to fully fund it? What's the right distribution of that kind of workload or the amount of money we
Mhm.
pay? So a lot of I think like not even huge things that are on the horizon because we're pretty developed here in Highland, but it's just making sure that we're doing all of those other things the best that we can. And then of course we have the Highland Mains that's coming in, and we have Longhorn Field that is going to be
Yes.
a conversation, I think, in the next few years. And so those are really our two big main areas left in
Yes.
Highland that I think we have to be really careful to do right. We also have the gravel pit
Oh,
up
yes.
by where I live. So the gravel pit is going to be done mining in the next couple of
Okay,
years.
and that's what I was going to ask about actually, because
Yeah.
like I have a lot of listeners that like come even that are in Alpine, Lehigh. And so a
Yeah,
lot of these things impact
for
everywhere,
sure.
whether you're in Highland or not. But the gravel pit, I actually do get questions on that. And I'm glad to hear because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I'd heard rumors that it was going to be done
I've
sometime
heard
soon.
rumors it was going to be done in 5 years for like 20
That's what I
years.
was going to say. It's for
Yeah.
about 20 years.
So,
Yeah.
but they are almost done mining, and Utah County has actually helped purchase the land, and it's going to be a big aquifer. So, looking at water, it will provide
Really?
water for all of the area. So, the Central Utah Water Conservation District is going to be doing a big project there. They'll move the gravel back to where it was supposed to be, like kind of shored up.
Right.
And then a big water project that will be going on, which is super good to have in Highland. And I think water is a thing that we don't talk about enough. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Huge deal.
I mean, I could even do another podcast
About
episode
water.
just on water because
Don't
that
ask
is
me to do that one
yeah.
because the water is like so complicated.
It is
and
so
I'm like,
complicated.
It's so complicated.
Well, and I just, again, going to even real estate, what's interesting is anytime somebody's selling a property, like if it's a larger property, like right now I'm about ready to list something down in Woodland Hills and they have water rights and shares. And I have dealt with a few projects where I call it the water mafia
Yeah.
because literally there are people that watch for projects if it's got water attached, wells. I mean, it's like it is a thing, people. So
It's a huge thing.
And there's a lot, and it's very complicated, like you said. And I do think that it's something that people need to be aware of,
Huge thing.
And I know that, like even when I worked for the governor, that some of the most kind of, I would say, I don't want to say heated, but maybe heated. It was just discussions with other states. A lot of times had to do with water and just everything because who owns the water that's flowing between states, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then now, like you said, just there's also national issues with water. We got states issues. We got county, city, and
Well, and they all deal with it different. Like if they require developers to bring the water shares
That's
with
right.
them, or if they get
Yes.
it automatically. But then it's like people will say, but it's a drought year. What if we don't have water? Well, you can't just take somebody's water shares. Like, I think property rights are a big thing because everybody wants to say, like, you can't give them water. You can't let them build on this field. We like this field. But like private property rights are a thing that you have to respect.
Yep.
And so there's a lot you can't do.
Mm-hmm. And I always feel bad when a lot of times I think people don't know who to talk with.
Yeah.
Right. And so they just blame the city. It's like, oh, it's your fault. And you're like, actually, this is something that's coming down from the legislature.
Right. Actually, a lot of the time it's the legislature. And you know what? Sometimes it is us, and let's take accountability.
Yep.
Let's solve the problem. Let's not blame the previous council, whatever. Let's just, what do we need to do?
It's just, what are we doing ahead?
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Well, and I want to chat about the Highland Mains project
Oh, let's
because
do.
I'm actually really excited about that project.
Yeah.
And I know, and this is where I'm going to out myself because there's been some controversy around this, but, and I've attended a few city meetings around it, but I'm very much in favor of it. And I'm also in favor of kind of changing our rules. So in Highland, we have a law that is Sunday closure. And so we have a lot of businesses that there's a forced Sunday closure. And I am not for it. I'm for undoing that law. I think that it takes away from local control, people's choices, just a lot of different things in that.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone right now, they're like, we want these restaurants, we want nice things, we want, this. But then they also at the same time are saying that like, oh, but we don't want Sunday closure.
Right. Well, and the big thing with Highland Mains was alcohol. So Highland is also a dry city, except for the country club because it was here before we incorporated.
And most people, by the way, do not know this. So I'm glad we're touching on this.
Yeah, they're also open on Sunday.
Alpine Country Club is open on Sunday, okay? And if you're local and you're watching this, most people don't know that. So it's open on Sunday and they serve alcohol, just so you know.
Yeah. So they were here before the city was incorporated, so they were grandfathered in.
Yes.
So, yeah, but so blue laws are kind of a big thing in Highland. We were one of the last cities in Utah to have no alcohol. So completely dry city. Like you can't buy alcohol.
Like you can't be at a restaurant and have alcohol.
No.
Right.
And then Sunday closures, which was like the pharmacy's closed on Sunday, like everything's closed on Sunday, which has been a little bit tricky for Highland because then if you have the Walmart and the Smiths that decide to locate like on the borders, then all of that sales tax money is going to
Exactly.
those
Because
cities.
people that are going to be wanting to shop at Costco or whatever, they're going to go to the city that lets them open.
And if you're going to shop, you can shop in
Yes.
Walmart on Sunday. Well, you're also going to shop there Monday through Saturday because there's not a Walmart in
Well, and
Highland.
guess what? Anybody gets to choose.
Well, and
when they want to shop.
That's one of the interesting things about Highland, Maine. So when they decided to come to Highland, one of the rules is that we just are a dry city. But like kind of complicated rules surrounding being a dry city because it goes clear back to like when the state legislature wrote rules about alcohol initially, and Highland really never updated its language surrounding that. So it kind of turned into this conversation of should we allow any alcohol in Highland? And a lot of people said it's our local character. If people want to drink, they can go to a different city. Other people were like, but if they're drinking, they might as well be closer to home because it's safer. And then a lot of people are like, we want these specific restaurants to come to Highland. Well, you can't really choose that, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's private property rights. The developer, as long as he's within the rules, can sell to whoever wants it. And it's not our job either to decide if they will or won't be profitable. Right. Like that's not our job. We like follow the zoning rules and go with that. So the city council ultimately put out a survey to see what people wanted. They were in favor of alcohol in a limited way.
It was like
65%.
65% or higher, right?
So we voted to allow it, but in like super limited conditions. So like last drink served at like 10 o'clock. You can't brew anything on the premises. You can't take it off the premises. Like as many rules as you could have, a limited number of licenses. But people were really upset about that.
And I attended that meeting, by the way. So I was at this meeting where there were some
strong
voices.
Opinions.
Yes.
And it was a lot of talk about like the youth of today and what kind of example we were setting for them. And I remember this one teenager came up to comment and he was like, look, if we want to drink as high schoolers, we're going to shoplift from the 7-Eleven. We're not going to your sit-down restaurants. Like, don't worry about us.
We're not going to sit down and order something because we're going to be carded,
basically like, we're good, so don't you grown-ups blame your problems on us.
I thought he was so good. I actually do remember him speaking.
He was like, and the police chief is sitting right there.
My favorite other police chief comment, by the way, was that somebody asked, they said, how many DUIs have you had in the history of Alpine Country Club being open on Sundays and serving alcohol?
Yeah.
With your meal, like if somebody could order it. Again, not forced, but it was an option. And he said 0. We have had no problems, no disturbances, no DUIs. No, nobody's gotten rowdy and out of control, you know.
But, and I get it, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
I understand where they're coming from, and I understand wanting Highland values. And I even understand, like, those values don't necessarily change. But I think there are some things that we can update that aren't going to be harmful to the community. So ultimately, the city council voted to allow alcohol in really limited situations. And then one of the great things about Utah is if you don't like something the legislature or your city council does, there's a process for that.
Yes.
Right? And so they went to collect signatures and ultimately didn't collect enough signatures to put it on the ballot as something that could be overturned. But they worked really hard, and there was definitely an audience for that. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see that. I know you wanted to mention, I think we're going to see that again coming up with Sunday openings. That's kind of the issue that's very similar,
You think that will be on the ballot at some point?
So I think that it will be a conversation that is had at some point. My guess would be sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. And it will be something that people are really passionate about. And it's going to be something. So Sunday closures was on the ballot. I don't even know how many years ago. It was before I was on the council. So a while ago. I remember voting on it.
I was here. I was actually in Highland in a different house.
So the city council had voted in favor of Sunday openings, and then it was overturned by the voters. So this time, whenever it is that the conversation opens up again, my opinion will be that if you want something changed, you need to start the initiative process and let it come from the residents. Let them put in the work and the effort to get really invested in it, and let the people decide what they want. Because in the end, I think no matter what the city council would decide to allow or not allow, I think the decision would be referred.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not create this divisive thing in the community that just goes on and on. Like, let's put it to the voters, and then
Yep.
whatever they want, let's make. This is like, I get we're a representative democracy, so I'm elected to
Mm-hmm.
make the best decisions I can
Right.
for people. But I think there are some issues that people feel so strongly about, as they should, which is why we have our
Mm-hmm.
initiative and referendum processes, that let's let people decide. It's not a complicated issue. Like, most people organically have a response to it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's let the people decide.
I like that. And also, Highland's not a big city. I mean,
No.
we're, you know, it's
20, I
it's-
think they say 25,000 at full build
yes.
out.
Yep. So, I mean, we're very small. And so I love that. And I think that's good. And I think that there's always going to be differing opinions, you know.
100%.
And even when I talked to one of my neighbors, this was years ago, about the Sunday closure, you know, and he was Jewish, and he said, you know, if I had my way, we would be closed on Saturdays.
Yep.
And that kind of blew my mind a little bit, and it really kind of made me think about that. And I went, you know, are we tolerant of other people's religions also, and their, you know, their things that they have? And so I think Sunday closure, we're going to see some things on Sunday closure probably pop up. I think
Yep.
like you said, alcohol, that one's kind of still around. And then kind of going back to Highland Mains, what are they talking about doing over there right now? Because I know there's going to be some restaurants, obviously.
And I would say, by the way, not even like tolerant, but like, let's be welcoming. Even.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
I think
Yeah, that's
beyond
even
that.
better. Yeah, it's not tolerant, it's welcoming and embracing, and I love that.
Which is what we want to be, right? And what we say,
And inviting.
we say that we are.
Yeah,
Exactly. So Highland Mains, they've started digging already. Like, they're working on building. So we're talking about over kind of behind
Yeah, the
Little
good-
Caesars.
Yeah, so
and-
this is kind of over, let's see, where do we want to say? Kind of behind the Roxbury, Little Caesars. Everybody
I, like,
knows the Little
reference
Caesars.
everything in Highland by, like, I'm like the McDonald's Road, the Arctic Circle Road, like by Little Caesars, by Wendy's, like where I go. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they're by CVS and by Little Caesars.
By the Old Blue Lemon and other. Yes, it's kind of in
our
back
new
of
Little
that.
India. Have you?
Yeah,
been
Little.
there?
I love it, Little India. That, in fact, I'm going to interview them at some point.
Oh, you
'cause
are?
I love them.
They're great, and I love that they came to Highland.
I do too.
So they've started building. They haven't released any names publicly of the restaurants, but I think the goal is still to have 4 or 5 big restaurants and kind of a nicer shopping area, kind of similar to Riverwoods in Provo, I think, in feeling, but very congruent with our architecture and the mountains and just who we are as Highland. So they've started digging already and building, and I think it'll be in the next year or so that we'll see maybe our first openings there.
Really? So in about a year?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they're like in progress and have submitted plans, and things are going.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it got quiet for a while and everybody was like, what's going on? But if you look there, you'll see some digging and planning going on. So it's good.
I'm going to go drive by there now.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Okay. Any other big projects coming up?
I think those are the big ones. We're finishing up installing water meters, and I think water metering will be a conversation of how that's going to work, if you're going to have to pay for that. You can access your water usage. Did you know this online now?
Yeah, somebody
So
told me
it's-
that.
Yeah, so it's very cool. So I think even just being cognizant of what we're doing and what we're using is going to be a good thing. Finishing up Mountain Ridge Park. So we've got the new park is in, the All Abilities, the Ninja Court, the new baseball field. We're waiting until the soccer fields get a little bit more like grown. What do you?
Yeah, like
Filled in, right? Like
Yeah.
the grass is there, but not ready to start using it.
Right.
And then there will be that mile loop trail around the outside. So I think those are kind of the big things that are coming up. All good. It's great people here who all want the best thing for their community. So I think we have some only positive things coming for us.
Yes.
First woman. We've never had a woman mayor.
I was going to ask you that. From my understanding, you will be the first female mayor in
Of
Highland.
Which is crazy because there's a female mayor in Linden,
Yeah.
Alpine, Cedar
Hills.
There's
Yep.
one running in Lehigh.
Yep. Provo,
So,
we've already had
yeah.
females. Yeah.
So
So,
it'll be a good change, I think.
yeah, I'm so excited about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I'm excited too.
Well, what about roads too? Before we kind of wrap up, I was wondering if I always get questions about roads. Roads are, there's always talk about that.
I would say roads are the craziest thing in Highland because you have one group of people who are always like, we need our better roads to be
Hmm.
maintained. And then you have another group of people who are like, if you build roads and fix them, people will drive on them. And we don't want more people. So let's not fix the roads.
Yeah.
So we have a really comprehensive road maintenance plan where all of our road maintenance is scheduled out so that we can pay for it years in advance. Like there's a map where you can see when your road is scheduled to be fixed or rebuilt or whatever.
Is that on the Highland
It's on
website?
the Highland website.
Okay.
We're working on something similar for our trails. We have so
I was
many
going to
great
ask about
trails.
that too.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have a plan for how we're going to do that. I think the biggest problem with our roads, though, is speeding. Like we have
Yes.
every week, there's another neighborhood who's like, you have to do something. People are speeding. It's dangerous. Our kids like to play, right? All fair. So, what should the speed limit be? What should the designations of our roads be? We're working on a new general plan now, which has not been done for like 15 years. So that will like classify all of our roads, any additional zoning, if there's anything we want to change that way. So I think like road safety is a big thing. Like
It really is. I
drive
mean, it is.
safely.
Well, and that's one of the things I tell even my own kids. I'm like, if somebody's driving crazy near you, like, just kind of back off,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know. I mean, I do feel like people are speeding a lot through, I mean,
So
crazy.
crazy. So we did something a couple of years ago that I was really big on. We implemented what we call our traffic calming toolbox. So if you have a speeding problem in your neighbor, there's an application you can fill out online,
Hmm.
$25, and the city will actually do a traffic study there, see if people are actually speeding, if it's like just perception. And then we have a range of things that we do, like different medians. The way that you stripe the roads can be like a big difference. Like if you stripe lanes closer together, you can still have a
Yeah.
like wider road, but people will slow down. So speed bumps on Canal, which we won't talk about because that was very controversial.
Oh, yes.
A big
Yes.
deal. So we have this whole traffic calming toolbox that we have. So if you have a problem in your neighborhood, submit an application. Our engineers look at it and say, in this specific circumstance, these are the things that we can do. Flashing lights, making bike lanes, like narrowing lanes, medians. So many things we can do, and we'll do it like to your own individual
Well,
neighborhood.
and I was thinking about even just Canal Boulevard, for example. That's been a little bit of an
That's
issue,
a big
a
issue.
lot issue,
A big
yeah.
issue.
And since I live near it,
Mhm.
but I will say, like we had a friend who actually almost got hit because she was in the crosswalk even, but somebody was going to turn left and then they cut around and they didn't know that
Yeah.
like the reason the truck was slowing to stop was because she was in the crosswalk. And so that was like a narrow miss. But I feel like with crosswalks, like people just are not observant of those. And so I think it's helpful if they have the flashing lights
Yeah.
that somebody can just push if they're crossing because to warn the other cars.
And you can do those now, so they're like solar power.
Yeah, like that's what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
it's not
There's
a
some
big
that
deal.
are solar.
Yeah, I have a teenager at Lone Peak, and I'm like, she's not allowed to leave the Lone Peak parking lot, like between 2:15 and 3:30, because I'm like, you're not leaving then, because it's
It is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll get people speeding and different things.
Yeah. So that's a big one. Like, and it's not just kids.
No, it's not.
It's
No.
not mostly kids.
It's actually more adults.
It is. It's the adults.
Yes.
Slow down.
So slow down. Be careful.
Exactly.
What about trails? You brought up trails, and I live near the Murdoch Trail, and I know that there's a statewide initiative to eventually connect all the trails to go from the top of the state to the bottom of the state.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we're working on trails right now. So the trail segment that is down, kind of that goes to the east of Costco, like by the Equestrian Center.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Kind of connecting that down through Lehigh. So connectivity is a big deal. Kim Rodella is on our regional trail connectivity committee or whatever. So we work a lot with Alpine and with Lehigh, with all our neighboring cities to like, because you can't just plan trails to nowhere, right? So plan them in a thoughtful way.
I used to have
You
a
did,
backyard.
yes, I know
My
your-
backyard used to be this trail that somebody just went, "Oh, let's just put a trail here." They never even looked at the land, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It was just like they had the developer give them a piece of it, and it was super hilly,
Uh-huh.
terrainy, terrible. It would have been a terrible trail, and it didn't even make sense, you know? But then, but I know that open space issues too, by the way, are kind of a thing. Like,
I
everybody
think
for a
so.
few years just kind of said, "Oh, let's have all this open space," but then it's like, well, who's gonna maintain it? And the cost to maintain it too is weighty. It's hard.
It's crazy. You know what the other hard thing about the open space has been, though, is people don't treat the city the same as they would treat a neighbor.
Yep.
Like, you wouldn't put your fence on your neighbor's
Mhm,
property, but people
mhm,
will encroach into city space.
mhm.
So that's been a problem too. But I think, like, with the trails, we have to be super thoughtful, even up above Beacon Hills,
Yep.
where there's like mountain bike trails and horse
Mhm.
trails. Like, let's be thoughtful about how we do that, how we use our conservation easements, and make
For
sure
sure.
that we're making sense,
Yes.
right, with what we're doing.
Yep. No,
So
I
that's a big
agree.
thing.
I think, and I love that you're communicating with the other neighboring cities, because it doesn't make sense to have, you know, alpines trails
Yeah.
not really connect into Highland, and then, it's just hard that
So
way.
that's been an amazing thing, and we don't need to get into the whole thing because it's a big thing. Um, but with the school district, so we worked really closely, city councils together, and I now have friends on every city
Mhm.
council, and we'll go to lunch, or I can call them and say, "What are you doing about this issue in your city? Like, how
Mhm.
can we work together? Or what's something that's worked well for you, or what hasn't worked well?" And those relationships, I think, are
They're
such
huge.
a big deal because in the end, we're all wanting to create I want a better Lehigh, a better Cedar Hills, a better
Absolutely.
Alpine. So let's learn from each other. And
Mhm.
it's one of my favorite things about city council now is just the amazing people I've met who all want to do the best.
And they all want great things for the community
Mhm.
and the county and the state. And I agree. I think that that's one of the most amazing things, because I think that collaboration, I don't know what happened, but like I feel like a few years ago, there just
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of collaboration. And that's changing right now.
And it's amazing if you go into every conversation with another city council person from a different city, with a resident, whoever, and if you all start from a place of like assuming the best, assuming that we all want the best for each other and for our communities, you can get a long way. If you have that underlying, like, we disagree, but if we acknowledge that we all want what's best, we just
Hmm.
have a different way of getting there, it goes a long way,
Yeah, this
I
is
think.
great. And thanks for coming today, because, and I kind of, in closing, I think that there's a lot of times areas that we agree on
Yeah.
more than people think. And that was one of the things I learned, I think, a lot from Governor Herbert, is he would bring in people into a room that, maybe had complete, what we would think, opposite,
Yeah.
perspectives. And he would just sit down and say, okay, what are the things we can find in common? And I think with the city councils and with meeting different people, it's like, okay, what are the things we have in common? And we all, even with different perspectives, like, we have these, everybody wants a good community,
Yeah.
and I think
And
that's
there's
the way to
always
do
a
it.
compromise. There's
Absolutely.
always a compromise.
You're not always going to get 100%. And
No.
sometimes that's actually a good thing. And then when you look back, you're like, actually, that's really good
Right.
that we did compromise.
And you learn how to win gracefully, you learn how to lose gracefully, which is
Yep.
just as important,
Yes.
and then it works.
Yep, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming
You're
today.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well,
It's
this
good to
has
see
been
you
great.
again.
I know it's great to see you too. And I'm excited to have the first female mayor of Highland. And this is an exciting time. And I'm
It
excited about
is.
all the projects and things going on.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Thanks.
Hey, thank you so much.